Okay, so I had to restart because I actually worked this problem the wrong way the first time. So that first video is 1 through 4. This should be hopefully 5 through 10. We'll finish these up. All right, so this expression right here, x to the 6th minus y to the 6th. Now that sounds like a lot of different things. It could sound like difference of cubes, or it could sound like difference of squares. Both of these are cubes. That's x squared cubed. That's y squared cubed. But that's also x to the 3rd squared and y to the 3rd squared. So let's start with difference of squares first. Remember, there's always more than one way to solve a problem. So let's factor that into difference of squares. So x to the 3rd plus y to the 3rd, that's the square root of each one of those, and x to the 3rd minus y to the 3rd. That's what that factors into as difference of squares. Now, both of these are also factorable. We've learned a pattern for this. This is called the sum of cubes. This is called the difference of cubes. Each of these factors into a binomial and a trinomial, okay? This is a pattern that this may ring a bell. We had to remember the word soap for the signs in the new terms here. So same, opposite, always positive. So this plus is going to turn into same, opposite, always positive. And this minus is going to turn into same, opposite, always positive. Now we got to fill in the rest of it. So this is just the cube root of each term. This is just the cube root of each term. That's in the binomial at the beginning of each one of those. This is the first term from there squared, the last term from there squared, and then the two terms multiplied together. Same thing over here. That term squared, the last term squared, and then the two terms multiplied together. We end up getting C for our answer. All right. That was a big one. That was a difference of cubes or difference of squares. That would be maybe a good candidate for making a good educated guess and moving on, because that one took even me a few minutes, and I had to correct myself once. So this is number 6. Excuse me. All right, so what values of x make this equation true? What values of x make this equation true? There's just like almost every problem that we do, there's a couple of different ways to approach it. We can cross multiply. Anytime you have fraction equals a fraction, you can cross multiply. And then get everything on the left side and then put it in your calculator and zero it out. But this is not a calculator section, is it? This is a non-calculator section. So I'm going to dive to this other side here, and we're just going to start plugging some numbers in. Now, -3 immediately makes that a 0 on the bottom of that fraction. So x cannot be -3, and x cannot be -3. Maybe x could be 0. Let's plug it in here. If x was 0 there, we'd have 3 over 3. And if x was 0 here, we'd have 9 over -9. That doesn't work either. Let's try 6. 6 would give us 3 over 9, because 6 plus 3 is 9. And over here, 6 would give us 9 over 36 minus 9, which is 27. 9 over 27, these are both 1/3. So that one ends up being just x equals 6, all right? All right, moving along here. Jamie deposits $627 into a savings account. The account has an interest rate of 3.5% compounded quarterly. Write the function that gives the amount of money in dollars in Jamie's account 10 years after the initial deposit. So we know that the time is t. Oh, t years, not 10 years, t years. Got to read it carefully, Mr. Pierce. Got to read that thing carefully. So we're going to look at the formula that tells us about compounded quarterly. Now, compounded quarterly, hopefully you guys remember this. It's the principal amount times 1 plus the rate over the number of times it's compounded. Wait, I think I'm screwing this formula up. Fortunately, you are given these formulas on the EOC. You are given a list of these formulas. Let me grab that real quick. Because I don't want to start a new video. You will be given one of these as you're working on this material. So this is the list of formulas that you need to solve some of these things, and you don't have to remember them. You don't have to bring them with you. So we're using compound interest. It is P times 1 plus the rate over the number of times that it's compounded. Remember, if it's quarterly, it's compounded 4 times a year. To the n t. Now t, we know, is a variable, so it's going to stay a variable. But we have $627 at the very beginning. We have 1 plus the rate is 0.035 or 3.5%. You got to move that 2 times, move that decimal 2 times in order to make it into a decimal, a regular decimal, over 4 to the, and then 4t power. So, is that everything? That is everything. We have 12 here. This, I have a feeling this one may have come, whoever created these, I did not create this actual sheet. So let me see if this one maybe came off of the one that, oh, I see. This actually came off of the one where you're not supposed to use a calculator, and you would be given, you would have the expression written out just like I have here. But in order to get these multiple choice answers, you would have to use a calculator. So, grab my calculator here. One plus 0.035 over 4. 1.00875 to the 4t, so that would give us option 1. Again, this problem came off of the part without a calculator, but you wouldn't be able to do that calculation without a calculator, certainly not easily. So in the multiple, if this were in a multiple choice situation, you would definitely be given, that would be in the calculator portion. All right, so here's number 8. Which expression is equivalent to the square root of 16, a to the 4th, x to the 6th? We just take the square root of 16, pull it out. We take the square root of a to the 4th, pull it out. We take the square root of x to the 6th, pull it out. Remember that numbers are just numbers. You treat them like numbers. But exponents, when you pull them out, the square root of it, you divide that exponent by 2. If we were taking the cube root, we divide by 3. If we were taking the 4th root, divide by 4th, and so on. But we divide that by 2, and we end up with a to the a squared, x to the 3rd, and our answer ends up being m. All right? All right, 2 more. The formula to determine the pH of a solution given its hydronium ion concentration is y equals negative log of x. X is the hydronium. They put all of these fancy words in here and all these chemicals and stuff just to sort of distract you from what you're actually doing. However, that's not to say that this is an easy problem. This is not a particularly easy problem because of the signs. The signs just tear you up on this one, okay? And I might end up having to look at the answer on this one, but we're going to work it here real quick. So, y equals negative log of x in parentheses, which equation represents the hydronium ion concentration in terms of the pH. The pH is this part over here. So all we're going to do is flip this whole thing around, but you remember, with a log, you can turn the log into exponential form. So that's what we're going to do. Remember, the answer to a log, which is actually on the left side, we could move it over here if we wanted to. The answer to a log is always the exponent. And anything in front of the log could be turned into an exponent if we wanted to. But let's work with it the way it is. So we're going to multiply both sides by -1 to get rid of that negative. I want to move it over here next to the y. Now we have log base 10 of x. Remember, if there is no base, if the log base is empty, then the base is 10. So what this is saying then is 10 to the negative y equals x. All we did was switch it into exponential form. So x equals 10 to the negative y. That answer should be D. And I'm going to check that just to be sure, because I can click on this. Yep, that answer is D. So thank goodness, all right? All right, now let's go on to the next one. Last one actually on this section. So this should be the second video, and we successfully completed one of these tests. So if x is greater than 0, then x to the 1/2 is equivalent to 1/2. Now the x, this part is just, it's not really to distract you. It's just sort of a formality. They have to say that. It's kind of like if they were to say this, they would say, oh, by the way, x does not equal 0, just to make you think, oh, well, I know x can't be 0 because you can't have a 0 on the bottom of a fraction. So that's just a formality. Don't really pay much attention to it. X to the 1/2 is equivalent to, that 1/2 is the same thing as a square root sign. So the square root of x. All right, we'll see you for the next set, which is 20 questions. So hopefully this is still on Thursday, March 10th. I want you to go ahead and start the next 20 questions, even though the goal is to complete 20 questions in a day. So you may only get through half of that. All right? Thank you guys very much. We'll talk to you soon.